Looking for adventure in 2023? How does island hopping in Thailand sound? What about marveling at waterfalls in Iceland? Or tapas with your new BFFs in Seville? What about discovering the world with an awesome group of 18 to 35s? Explore all of this and more with Kentucky. You'll sleep in the coolest accommodation and learn from local guides and experts. Visit Kentucky.com. That's CONTIKI.com to book your next adventure. Kentucky. Travel together.
So, how does it feel when you play Roll Up to Win with Tim Hortons? Buy a hot or cold beverage using the Tim's app and find out. Roll in the app for a chance to win prizes ranging from free coffee and donuts to a Universal Orlando resort vacation or a sweet car. Oh, don't forget the TV. And this year, every roll is a shot at a $1,000 daily giveaway drawing for two $500 prizes. Roll up to win and get treated by Tim's. No purchase necessary. Account registration required. 50 U.S. and D.C. 18 plus. Entered by 4223. See rules at rolluptowin.com for free entry and full details. Void in Florida and where prohibited.
Doing that, I was face to face with it. It was holding me by my throat, and it felt like it was sucking something out of me.
I probably should have been more scared than I was when I witnessed the exorcism.
I turned and looked on my right side. When I did, there's a beam on the side of the tree, a large beam. It's looking at me, and I'm looking at it.
After I hit the lock button and looked back up, I saw red eyes staring back at me.
That they're going to show multiple gods all over the earth, be able to speak in people's languages, and at that point, it kind of converge into this one entity, which will be revealed as extraterrestrial. You'll realize that aliens are the gods of old, and at that point, it'll wipe religion out of the context of humanity.
No way, it couldn't have been a person, I know that. I know that people can't run through the woods like that.
So this thing comes into view, and I see it. It's 50 yards away from me. It's walking on two legs. It's huge. This is a big, hairy-looking being.
Welcome. I'm your host, and this is uNcomfortable. Hello and welcome back to the show. I am your host, Eric Szilagyi. If you've had an uncomfortable experience and you'd like to have it featured on the show, please get a hold of me at contact.uncomfortable@gmail.com. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook, both at the Uncomfortable Podcast 65. And please remember, leave us a 5-star rating and review where you can, and share the show with others. That is the best way you can get Uncomfortable showing up in new listener recommended feeds, and more people listening means more great people coming forward with their stories for you. Also, in the show notes, you'll find the link to the Uncomfortable Discord server. We've started this back at the beginning of January, and I have to tell you, it's been an awful lot of fun. Really not something that I was expecting, and it's kind of starting to turn into a thing on Friday nights. It seems like I jump in there, and we have an active voice channel, and it goes on for hours at times. So, if you're interested in that, that link is in the show notes as well. All right. Well, for tonight's show, I've got something a little bit different for you. My guests tonight are a mother and son team who host Brutal Bizarre and Boozy podcast. Mom Jane hails from Northern California, and son Deklan lives in Oregon. I've listened to several of their episodes, and I've found they have a unique niche for that covering of the true crime aspect mixed with the weird. And it's a really neat show. They do a great job with it. Typically, each one of them brings an unusual tale to the table, and tonight I will be joining suit with that. I'll have a weird tale of my own. Another fun aspect of their show is they always seem to find an alcoholic mixed drink that somehow kind of ties into one of their stories, and we're going to do that as well. I'm pretty excited about this. I hope you enjoy it, and if you're ready, Let's find out what they have in store for us. So if you would, please give a warm, uncomfortable welcome to Jane and Deklan, the hosts of Brutal, Bizarre, and Boozy.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to the show, guys.
Hi. Yes, definitely.
I'm excited to have you guys on here for a number of reasons. One, this is a little bit of a departure from typically what my show does. I like true crime podcasts. My daughter is nuts about them. But it's completely out of my niche, you know? So I thought it was a neat idea to have you guys come on, do your thing, but at the same time try to get some stories that kind of fell into the genre of what we cover here. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think this is going to be a good time. Yeah. Tell me, how did you guys get into doing this? I love the fact that it's a mom and son team. I mean, I think that's great. I love seeing parents spend time with their kids, and you know, just go give us a little bit of background on how you guys started doing this.
Go for it, Mom.
Well, thanks, bud. We've been talking about doing something together for about a year, and then we had joked about doing like a podcast, YouTube style, and doing it just, you know, cooking stuff. And then we started thinking about who wants to hear other people chew, and nobody likes that. And we both are big into true crime and weird stories. And when we get together, we're always talking about, hey, have you heard this crazy thing? And did you hear about this weird thing? And so we just decided, let's give it a shot, and let's put it together and do a combination of weird and true crime. And because he tends to bring more of the, have you heard of this really weird thing, this whatever, and I normally haven't heard of the weird thing, and so he'll bring it to me, and then I go, oh my God, did you hear about this crazy true crime stuff? And I think it was my birthday last year, you got me a mic, and I was like, oh, okay, we're doing it now. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So Declan was the push to get the podcast going, basically.
Yep.
Good job, man. Good job. I've listened to several of your episodes. The thing, I don't know if you guys experience this yet or not, but you know, I'm just into my second year of doing this. And as much as I love podcasts, I absolutely love podcasts, but there's times where I just got to back away and force myself to stop listening, because it gets to be too much. You know, you're listening to them all day at work, and then you're coming home and you're working on yours, and you know, then you're trying to talk to other people and get them to come on, and then you got other people that are asking you to come on, and it's like, oh my word! At a point, it's just like I can do it for a while, but then I have to step away from it, and I just focus on mine. You know, there's times where I'm like, well, I don't want to sound like anybody else. I don't want to pick up habits of other shows and get compared to anybody. Right. You know, so I try to stay away from that. And but when I found yours, and honestly, I don't remember how I came about it. I was like, this is cool. I like the vibe between mom and son. And, you know, you guys got a nice little niche there in between the true crime and the weirder stuff. And there's been some really good episodes. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Yeah.
Before we get into too much, let everybody know where they can find you guys and where your socials are and all that.
So on Instagram, we are the brutal_bizarre_boozy podcast on there. Off the top of my head, I think that's about it on Instagram. We have a fans page, Brutal Bizarre and Boozy fans, on Facebook, where you can go and interact with other fans. We also have just a business page where we post a lot of our stuff, all of our stuff on Facebook, the Brutal Bizarre and Boozy podcast there. And you can always, if you can't write any of that down and you can't remember, you can find how to reach us on our show notes for any episode, wherever you're listening to it. It's in our show notes, so you can find us there.
That's awesome. Go check them out. Give them some love. They got some good stuff. And before you even bother listening to an episode, just take my word for it and give them a like, subscribe, and follow them on everything, because you're gonna find more than 1 or 2 episodes that you enjoy. I guarantee you.
We appreciate that, Eric. Thanks so much.
Oh, you're welcome. So, where are you guys from? Where do you hail out of?
We are both in Oregon. I am in Southern Oregon, a little town called Klamath Falls, and Declan's in Corvallis now.
Mm-hmm. Klamath Falls. Oh. How close to Boring is that?
Close to where?
Boring. Oregon.
Oh, Boring is
not close.
Up way north in Portland. It's probably 6 or 7 hours away, I think.
Is it?
Okay.
My daughter did a whirlwind vacation with her boyfriend. She left Chicago on a Tuesday or a Wednesday early morning, flew out to L.A., met her boyfriend. They stayed in L.A. for a day. They went to San Francisco. They stayed there for a day or two, and then they hopped in a Jeep, and they went north. They went through Washington and Oregon, and she ended up going to Cliff Barrickman's National or North American Bigfoot Center that he has up there in Boring, Oregon.
Okay.
And she took all kinds of pictures and bought me a bunch of little knickknacks and stuff from there, but I'm still upset that I didn't get to go.
That's cool.
So
that's cool.
I was very jealous.
Yeah.
She sent back some beautiful pictures from that area.
Yeah.
Oregon is just stunning.
Well, Declan's closer to Boring. I'm right on the California border, and he's more like north central Oregon, kind of that area.
Yeah.
He's about 2 hours from
Bigfoot
Portland.
country. Love Bigfoot up here.
Both areas are Bigfoot country, honestly. So.
Yeah. Neat stuff. Nice part of the country. I hope to get out there some point and experience it for myself, but it's beautiful.
It's beautiful and creepy and fun.
Just avoid Portland.
Yeah, Portland's gross. I mean, stay out of the big city. It's nothing important to see. It's any other big city, honestly. Sorry, Portland people.
Has everything there in Portland kind of calmed down? I mean, I know they had a year and a half ago or whatever it was where the populace kind of overthrew the local city government and kind of took over that area. Is that all like smoothed out and everything's back to normal now, or is that still like a demilitarized zone? Or
no idea. I think
you might know more about it. I don't know.
I think they kind of fix it up, patch it up a little bit, but it's still a weird place to go. That's for sure. I try and avoid it.
It is.
Yeah.
Not a great time going in there, but that's just my opinion.
The biggest problem that Portland has right now is a lot of tent camp type situations, and they're trying to, find housing for people who don't have housing and living in tents next to the freeway and the sidewalks and people's front yards and everything. And I don't know where you're at, Eric. I don't know if you have that situation there, but it's miles and miles.
No, I'm very fortunate that I live in like smack dab in the middle of the Midwest. There's no extremes here, in either direction. Everything's pretty much middle of the road. We do have some homeless, but even my kids live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, about 2 hours north of me. And when you go from here to there, it's a staggering difference in the amount of people you see on the street. And I can only imagine when you start getting to states that have much more congested populations, like where you guys are at, and this is in no way going to turn into a political show, but when I turn on the news every day, and I hear about the millions and the trillions that were in debt and the billions that were given to, the military. God bless the military. We need them. We got to stay safe. We got to be protected. But when we're given trillions of dollars to other countries and other regimes and other governments, and we've got people in our own country that are, struggling to live underneath a sheet in somebody's front yard. My God, man, I just don't. I can't fathom that that's allowed to happen here. They're Americans. They
Doesn't
should be
make
taken
any
care of.
sense to me, but I'm also
No.
not in charge,
No,
so
it really doesn't.
doesn't matter.
And I'm also of, hey, if you're able and willing, your ass ought to be getting a job and working. you
Yeah.
know. But the unfortunate part of that is, there's not always room for everybody.
Right.
And there are people that take advantage of the situation, and they take advantage of the different programs that they have in the country, and they live off of it. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about the people that desperately deserve to have a second chance and be taken care of by this country.
Right. Yeah.
And it's sad to see that many people in that situation.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about the weird stuff.
Yes.
So, how do we decide who goes first? And I got to be honest with you, it's about 3:30 my time in the afternoon, and I'm ready to start diving into this.
Yeah, let's go for
this
it.
drink that we have today.
I can go first
go
so
for
that
it.
we can wrap the drink and the story kind of closer together. So
Yeah, sounds good. What drink did you torture us with, Declan?
So I've got the Alice in Wonderland shot. There's technically
Okay.
two drinks that go by this name, but I chose the shot version because I'm not a huge fan of amaretto. I believe the other cocktail called for amaretto and Southern Comfort or something like that.
Yeah.
But this shot contains 1 ounce of Grand Marnier. Hopefully I said that right. Whatever. Yeah.
Money.
We're gonna roll with it. And top that with 2/3 of an ounce of your favorite Reposado tequila. So
Okay.
I didn't buy Grand
You know how
Marnier.
much I love shots, Declan. So
Yeah.
please.
Well, as I indicated earlier, I made a double.
Nice.
So I'm not gonna do this as a shooter. I'm gonna work
sip
on
it.
this for a
Okay.
little while. Yeah.
All right.
Sounds good.
Cheers.
Cheers.
It's almost like a margarita shot. That's good.
Could have been worse. Could have been worse. I'm a sissy.
It's not that bad, really. Not that
She doesn't
bad.
Yeah,
like
I
tequila.
brought a lime. It didn't say to bring a lime, but I brought a lime.
Grand Marnier, for the most part, is an orange flavored liqueur. A citrusy orange flavor to it. The tequila definitely changes the complexity of that drink. It does. It's kind of reminiscent of a margarita, but it's got a little bit more heat going down the pipe.
All it's missing is some lime
So-
juice. You're right on that one, Mom. That'd probably make it
Right.
taste pretty bomb.
Well, and it's sweeter than I thought it was going to be.
Grand Marnier is really sweet. I can remember my parents would like in the harsh winters here in the Midwest, after hours of shoveling out the driveway, while my parents sat there and looked at me out the window, cheering me on.
Right.
They'd always let me have like a half a shot of Grand Marnier, and man, I tell you what, talk about warming yourself up from the inside.
It definitely
out.
did.
That stuff was
Yeah. My throat's a little toasty now. So,
All right. So
all right, Declan. So, what story did you bring
Yeah,
to go with this shot of death?
that drink was called the Alice in Wonderland shot, and my story is the Alice in Wonderland syndrome, which is a rare mental disorder that it's got some very strange. I don't. Let's just roll into it. That's all I'll say.
Okay.
So, Alice in Wonderland syndrome, also known as Todd's syndrome, is a neuropsychological disorder that can cause distortion in time, distortions in the way one perceives objects, and even hallucinations. Patients describe it as being similar to an acid trip. So, yeah.
I don't like that.
There are over 60 symptoms associated with Alice in Wonderland syndrome that can affect vision, sensation, touch, and hearing. So
How many did you say?
there's over 60 symptoms.
60?
Yeah.
60. Oh, shit.
Yeah, and everyone kind of experience it a little different. However, there's some symptoms that are more prevalent than others. So migraines, nausea, dizziness, and agitation are also associated with Alice in Wonderland syndrome. The most common symptom of Alice in Wonderland syndrome. Also, quick interjection. If you guys are listening or watching, good drinking game would be to drink every time I say Alice in Wonderland syndrome.
I would argue that and recommend that if you're gonna drink every time he says that, maybe don't drink an Alice in Wonderland,
Right.
because you're gonna be
Go with a
laying on
light
the
beer
floor.
or something.
It's
Yeah.
a sip. Sip the shot.
Definitely go with a light beer.
Okay. I
It's
still
safer.
have half of my shot left, so I'll just sip every time you say it.
Okay. You just drank the tequila part of it. You got the Grand Marnier in the bottom.
I don't know.
Okay. So the most common symptom is the distortion of body image. People describe looking down and seeing their right hand warp to the size of a baby hand, or the opposite, and seeing their hand grow larger. They might experience feeling taller or shorter or fatter or skinnier. Basically, they're just warping like a funhouse mirror, pretty much.
Ooh.
This is referred to as microphagia and macrophagia, which is seeing objects as either smaller or larger than they're supposed to be, which is also like that's the most common symptom, is the micro and macrophagia. A 17-year-old high school student described his symptoms as this. Objects around the room would change size as if someone was zooming in and out on a camera. People around me were only the size of an index finger. The TV would move up and down as if it were attached to a bungee cord, and the blinds would also move. He could hear voices of people who weren't in the room, and their pitch would go up and down. His arms or legs would move around seemingly on their own. Yeah, not...
I don't like it.
It really doesn't sound like a fun time, especially if you're
No.
just laying on the couch and then it just boom, it hits you and everything starts moving and warping and. Ugh.
So this warped and this distortion changes, so it's not like every time I look at my right hand is big, and it like will get bigger and then smaller and then move in and out of the distortion.
It all depends on the person. Sometimes they see one thing over and over again, or sometimes they'll experience other symptoms that I'll talk about later. It's
Oh.
The way you're describing it, I get the vision in my head. Like on the older computers, there used to be a magnifying glass that would pop up, and you could move it around the screen to, the part of the article you were reading or whatever, and that part would get real big, but the rest of it was real small. That's kind of the impression I'm getting. It's like as you're looking, there'd be that one part of your vision that would be distorted, and everything else would be maybe normal, but one part in particular would be either bigger or extremely small. That would be funky.
Yeah.
I just can't help but think that while you were experiencing that, your depth perception would be completely askew.
Oh yeah.
You'd be really really
not
screwed.
a good time to be driving and have that happen. That
No.
wouldn't be good for anyone, especially pedestrians.
No. Yeah.
Was there anything in looking this up? Is it something that's triggered by something? Is it like is it a response to some kind of a medical condition, or is this something that is strictly a mental illness that happens because of some kind of imbalance in the brain?
Since it's such a rare case, there's not a lot of research on it, but there are some medical problems that they believe could cause it, or are at least correlated with it. There's not a ton of research to kind of go either way. So, along with body image, affected people also experience distortion in other objects. In one instance, a 10-year-old girl went to tell her mother and was complaining about how small everything in the room had gotten. The mother had experienced Alice in Wonderland syndrome when she was younger, so she knew exactly what her daughter was experiencing. She would look around and everything in the room looked like it could fit inside of a doll's house. So all their furniture was like Polly Pocket sized.
Oh, that's wild.
And another symptom in this is change in perceived time. 68-year-old man was gardening in his front yard when all of a sudden everything started speeding up and slowing down. So he was gardening, he looked up and he noticed all the cars were flying super fast because he lived like on a somewhat main street. And then all of a sudden they just started moving super slowly. Yeah, it was almost like someone had sat on the remote. It just time's going all over the place.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden everything stopped and he looked around and all the people on the street were either growing or shrinking and they were changing colors.
Oh, shit. I don't like it.
Are you sure this isn't just all prompted by a bad LSD
Yeah.
trip or mushrooms?
Maybe all these people are MK Ultra patients. I don't know.
Yeah, there we go.
They don't know they've been drugged, maybe.
Wow.
Wow, that's awful.
A 21-year-old university student was working on homework when his foot began to sink into the carpet as if he stepped on quicksand. When he looked around, the carpet was warping like waves on a pond, and every step he took felt like he was walking on sponges. When he went to lay down...
Yeah, this is definitely some drug-induced
Sure
shit here.
seems like it.
When he went to lay down, he looked at his hand and fingers, and they began to stretch on for miles, he claimed.
Oh.
Yeah. Since Alice in Wonderland syndrome affects all 5 senses, it can be very scary for someone experiencing this. For most people, symptoms last anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour. However, some people experience this for like multiple months.
Oh my
Yeah.
You couldn't do anything. You couldn't go to work. You couldn't go to the grocery store.
Yeah, you'd be stuck at home just tripping out all day.
Right. You would be. I see why they're talking about an LSD acid trip.
People changing sizes and colors. Like, ugh, that's so weird. So, a rare symptom of Alice in Wonderland syndrome is zoopsia, which I believe is how it's pronounced. So, zoopsia is the hallucination showing either swarms of small animals like mice or ants or packs of larger animals such as dogs or cats. Yeah.
Jane's out.
So you just look down and see a swarm of mice coming at you that aren't really there.
No.
Yeah.
No.
See, it wouldn't be mice for me.
Yeah,
it would be spiders.
No. Also not good. Ants.
The cats and dogs one would be kind of cool, but not.
Okay, I could get on board with cats and dogs. That's
Yeah.
fine. But anything else, no.
Yeah.
No.
All these symptoms sound pretty scary, so let's take a look at some possible causes. Since Alice in Wonderland is fairly uncommon and there isn't much documentation on this disease, a cause isn't known at the moment. However, many people experiencing Alice in Wonderland syndrome have experienced correlated problems. The syndrome is commonly associated with migraines as well as the use of psychoactive drugs, but it can also be the initial symptoms of Epstein-Barr virus, which is prevalent in most cases for children and teens. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that the majority of people affected by this syndrome are children and teenagers. So it kind of weeds out the they were on drugs.
The drug aspect.
Yeah.
So Epstein-Barr virus, Zika, influenza, and strep have all been correlated with this syndrome. People actively suffering from Alice in Wonderland syndrome have an increase in symptoms if they are sick and have a fever. So the higher their fever goes, the more their symptoms increase. And become more extreme. So it
like fever dream.
Literally, yeah, like you're awake for a fever dream. So some doctors have theorized that Alice in Wonderland syndrome can also be caused by hyperactivity in different parts of the brain, such as encephalitis, epilepsy, decreased cerebral blood flow, or reduced blood flow to other parts of the brain. While this isn't specifically a cause, a lot of parents that experience Alice in Wonderland syndrome as a child report that their children also suffer from it, which suggests that it could be hereditary. As for treatment,
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, not most, but like a lot of the cases have hereditary aspects to them. Like either the mom had it or the dad had it when they were younger. And as for treatment, there's not really a great method as of now. However, since most cases have underlying diseases, it's been proven fairly successful to treat whatever else is wrong first before the Alice in Wonderland syndrome.
So curious. So with any of you looking into this, the author of Alice in Wonderland, because that kind of imagery is so prevalent throughout the story and any of the film adaptations of it, was there ever anything that indicated that the author of Alice in Wonderland was suffering from this syndrome? And I mean, is there a comparison there? Or?
I don't think he or the author was suffering, but that is why they named it Alice in Wonderland syndrome, because of the way the book depicted everything that was going on. It was very similar to what people were experiencing with the syndrome. So they're like, that's close enough. We'll call it Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah. Wow. You can't really call a medical condition acid trip syndrome.
Acid trip syndrome, yeah.
Especially when kids are having it. They're like, oh, yeah.
Good point. That, I couldn't imagine. You know, the only thing I can even come even remotely close to, and this is coming from a guy who, I don't use drugs, but I have been very interested in, you know, like ayahuasca or DMT, purely and simply because everybody that does these trips, they all experience the same thing. They all see the same entities. They all seem to emerge from this trip having a completely changed realization of their spirituality or their idea of God or anything like that. And I think that would be an extraordinarily interesting thing to go through. Will I ever do it? No, because with my luck, I will be the one that comes out and then, you know, it's got drool running down the side of his mouth and going for the rest of my life. But, you know, the only thing I can come even remotely close to is, given my age and my eyesight having gotten worse through the years, now having to have bifocal or multifocal contact lenses. When I first got the prescription for that, you know, to stand and just look at everything out in front of me was fine. But what I noticed was, like, if I tried to walk down a stairway and I looked down, my depth perception was way off. Mm-hmm. And things were kind of out of kilter, and it took a bit of time to get used to it. I mean, it's nothing even remotely close to as bad as what these symptoms sound, but I know how badly that sucked, having to get used to that. So I couldn't imagine having to deal with something like this that would come on
I didn't
without
even
any
know
notice.
They made bifocal contacts. That seems very tough to get used to.
Yeah, they're called multifocal.
They're in a ring, right?
You know, they were.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, they're wonderful. I mean, you know, I've worn glasses before, but I have a fetish for expensive sunglasses. I love Oakleys and I love Ray-Bans. So I've got like 10 or 12 pairs of Oakleys and Ray-Bans that I I just, depending on the day and how I feel, I grab this pair, I grab that pair. Well, if I'm wearing glasses, all those are obsolete.
Yep.
So I opted to go with getting contacts, and it was fine for the first couple of years. But now that I need a little bit more help with the reading, it's still better than glasses for me because I get to utilize all my sunglasses. But that sounds like a really hokey reason to do it.
Was
it? I got a lot of money wrapped up in
was
sunglasses.
Was it scary to drive after you put them in for the first time?
The length of time. Here's the biggest concern that I had was I am a pressman for a printing company. So everything that I do is putting ink on paper that is got perfect 90-degree angles, right? You got 90-degree corners on every piece of paper, no matter what size it is. Mm-hmm. It's a even cut sheet size. And if I would hold a sheet of paper out in front of me, it no longer looked like a rectangle or a square. It looked like a trapezoid, where one side was longer and then it got narrower. And it wasn't a huge difference, but it was a noticeable difference. And when I print, you got to make sure that the print is straight on the sheet. You don't want stuff to be crooked when you're printing it or somebody to read it. And that became really difficult for me to make sure that the type was straight on the sheet. So I ended up having to go back, and they made a slight tweak or adjustment that kind of split the difference. So when it was in its original form, I could see a little bit better, but I was having those weird irregular shapes. Now I'm not quite as good a vision as I had before, but at least everything is now square and normal. So, but yeah, it took a little while, and I had him in for quite a while, and it wasn't until I went to a county city building where the elevators were out of service during the pandemic, so you had to walk. Going upstairs wasn't a deal at all. But coming back down the stairs where you had to look where you're placing your feet, then it was like, oh my God. I'm like, where's the handrail? Because I thought I was going to take a nosedive. And I'm not prone to getting motion sickness, but that was very much the feel of kind of how my stomach felt, with just like, it was weird. It was distorted, and it was not good. I didn't like it, but. So, well, that's a cool thing. I'm interested. I'm really interested. I might try to do a deep dive and see if the author of Alice in Wonderland ever reported having these types of visions. Right. I wonder if he was. I don't know if it was a he or she, but I wonder if they were suffering from the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be super interesting to know.
That would be interesting. Yeah.
Well, here goes the last of the Alice in Wonderland.
Are you done saying it, Declan?
Yep, I'm done saying it.
Okay.
Woohoo! Well, I'm glad I thought ahead and brought this Coke along with me.
Everyone loves TV Dad.
On the next TV Dad, presented by Progressive, TV Dad explains becoming a man.
Son, it's time we had the talk.
Okay, TV Dad.
You know, drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds.
Oh, is that why my voice is changing?
That's a question for your health teacher.
Listen to your TV Dad. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Potential savings will vary.
So, how does it feel when you play Roll Up to Win with Tim Hortons? Buy a hot or cold beverage using the Tim's app and find out. Roll in the app for a chance to win prizes ranging from free coffee and donuts to a Universal Orlando resort vacation or a sweet car. Oh, don't forget the TV. And this year, every roll is a shot at a $1,000 daily giveaway drawing for 2 $500 prizes. Roll up to win and get treated by Tim's. No purchase necessary. Account registration required. 50 U.S. and D.C. 18 plus. Entered by 4/2/23. See rules at rolluptowin.com for free entry or full details. Void in Florida and where prohibited.
Welcome to BreezeLine, where the sky's the limit thanks to better internet. With lightning-fast speeds up to 1 gig, you can game like a boss. stream like a pro, and watch like there's no tomorrow. Stream, watch, post, send, and trend. Do it all with our fiber-powered network, bringing you reliable, fast internet. Welcome to BreezeLine. Visit breezeline.com for latest offers. Service subject to availability. New customers in select areas only. Visit breezeline.com for details.
Well, are we up to my true
Jane,
crime story now?
I believe so. What have you got for us,
So,
Jane?
my question of the day is, do you believe in ghosts?
Yes.
In fact, I do. In fact, I've had experience with ghosts.
My next question
yes,
was going to be, have you seen a ghost?
Not explicitly.
I have not physically seen a ghost with my eyes. I've seen an orb manifest in front of me.
Okay.
Which was pretty incredible. I have been in the presence of something that moved an object.
Ooh. Wow.
Which was my dad.
That would be interesting.
So that was pretty cool. I mean, it sucked that he's dead and that happened, but I mean, looking back on, just the experience of being able to quantify that something moved from one place to another, without me doing it or anybody else being in the house, that was pretty astounding.
Wow.
I have taken a picture that in that picture revealed what I would say was some sort of a manifestation.
Oh, wow.
Of a spirit. But in fairness, when I stood there and I took the picture, I could not physically see it when I took the picture.
Did you feel like it was there, and is that why you took the picture?
That's a good question. Because I tell myself that I took the picture because it was a very small, old, very old cemetery near a lake near me. And there were two identical gravestones that were so old that the majority of any of the carving or relief into the stone was unreadable. It had been weathered down considerably. One of the gravestones was broken in half, and the broken half was picked up by somebody and leaned up against the part that was still in the ground, but there were two of them beside each other. And I just thought, I was there in the evening. It was nighttime. I was there with my kids and a couple other friends of theirs. We were basically doing our first ghost hunt. I told everybody when we got there, I said, this isn't fun and games. You need to be respectful and, don't take this lightheartedly, because this is the resting place for people who have passed on. They were viable people. They had lives. They had people that loved them. So understand that and be respectful of it. But that being said, we were not a paranormal encounter group. We had very limited. I had a camcorder. I had a digital camera. It wasn't like we were walking around there with millimeters and all kinds of stuff. We were just big fans of watching, like Ghost Adventures and stuff like that. And the amount of evidence that we captured during that short little stint at that place, coupled with the experiences that I had with my dad after he passed, is all I need. I mean, I got and I can share them with you if you like. I got this picture that I was talking about of this misty apparition that was by these gravestones. I took a picture of the surrounding wood line, the outside edge of the graveyard, and there's literally a face that looks like a theater mask. Like Motley Crue, Theater of Pain. Yeah. The two theater masks hanging. It literally looks like a theater mask sitting there in the middle of the woods for no good apparent reason. Very, very oh,
Yeah.
Okay. You know, and then my daughter and I, we were, she called me over to this one monument, and she said, oh my God, it got really cold back here. It got really cold back here. And, you know, she was 12 or 13 at the time, and I was like, yeah, sure it did. You know, she's just playing off of stuff that she's seen on these ghost shows. And so I walked up to the front of the graveyard where she was at, and there was this, it was a monument. It kind of looked like the Washington Monument. It was a large pillar that stood about maybe 5.5, 6 feet tall, and at the top of it, it had a pyramid. And it was just like a big piece of granite, and she was standing back there, and I walked between these two big oak trees. And like I said, it was nighttime, so the sun wasn't out. It wasn't like I walked into a shady area or anything. And I'll be damned, it got cold back there. And I was like, holy shit, kid, it is cold back here, you know? And I had a camcorder that was filming in my left hand, and then I had a digital camera in my right hand that I was just taking shots every so often. And we're standing there, and like at the top of the monument where the little pyramid figure or shape was, this little teeny tiny little blue ball of light just came out of nowhere. And it got to be about the size of a golf ball, maybe not quite as big as a golf ball. And it was suspended, and it just kind of zipped around, and poof, and it was gone. You know, I got it on tape.
Wow, that's awesome.
I got it on the camcorder, and I had to slow it down to 50 and 75% of its original speed to even get it to take up like 5 seconds of being on screen.
Wow.
And it came out of nowhere. It illuminated because it shined against the polished side of the monument. You could see the reflection of it in the monument. And it just did this weird little zippity-doo, and then it was, poof, it was gone.
Wow.
It wasn't like it flew away and I could watch it fly away. It just dissipated and was gone. So
that's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild. Well,
as far as have I seen a ghost or believe in them?
Close,
yes, I do.
yeah, okay. Well, many people report seeing ghosts in both threatening experiences and also curious encounters. I would qualify yours as a curious encounter for sure. Some people might wonder why a ghost or spirit would make their presence known. And does the ghost have a motive for making contact? In the case I'm going to tell you about, there's a huge motive for a spirit to make an earthly appearance. And that motive was justice. So I'm going to tell you about Teresita Basa. She was born in the Philippines in 1929. She moved to the U.S. in the 1960s, searching for a better life than what she could have in her home country. She initially wanted to study music, but eventually became a respiratory therapist. She worked at the Edgewater Hospital outside of Chicago. Also, although she was working at a hospital, she still had her love for music and was pursuing a master's degree in music. She was known to give free piano lessons to neighborhood children. And the kids in the neighborhood loved her, apparently, because she took the time to spend with them. And on February 21st, 1977, Teresita spoke with her friend Ruth on the phone. During their conversation, Teresita mentioned she was expecting a friend to stop by, but didn't give any further details. An hour after Teresita and Ruth's conversation, someone reported smoke in the area of Teresita's apartment. Firefighters entered her apartment and found a burning mattress on the floor. Under it was Teresita. She was naked with a knife sticking out of her chest. There was no physical evidence found at the scene, and although it might have looked like there had been a sexual component to the crime, she had not been sexually assaulted. The apartment had some fire damage, which prevented investigators from finding any crucial evidence like fingerprints, but investigators did find a note in Teresita's handwriting. The note appeared to be a reminder for her to buy theater tickets for someone with the initials AS. Almost 6 months went by without any substantial leads for the police to act on. But soon that would change when they received a call from Dr. Chua Jr., who said he had some information. Dr. Chua and his wife Remy were also from the Philippines, and Remy was a respiratory therapist that worked with Teresita. Dr. Chua and Remy explained that she was having visions about Teresita and her death, and this had happened on multiple occasions. Not only was she having visions of Teresita, but Remy appeared to be channeling her as well. Dr. Chua explained that more than once, Remy would go into a trance and speak as Teresita, asking for his help in solving her murder. Teresita's ghost reportedly told Dr. Chua that another coworker, Alan Showery, was the one who was responsible for her death. Teresita's ghost also presented crucial information about the crime. She explained that Showery had stolen some of her jewelry and had given it to his girlfriend. Teresita's ghost, speaking through Remy, I can't even imagine that. It's bad enough that you have a coworker that gets murdered and then all of a sudden she jumps into your body and it's like, hey, could you help me solve my murder?
That's crazy.
So Teresita's ghost described the jewelry that was stolen and who in her family that could identify the jewelry. So she said, these are the pieces that he stole. This is what it looks like. And this person in my family can confirm this piece of jewelry was mine. It was unique and distinct, and they would have known that it belonged to her because they had seen her wear it. So Showery worked at the same hospital as Teresita and Remy. Investigators were told by other hospital employees that Showery had agreed to meet Teresita at her apartment to fix her TV on the night of the murder. When questioned about the night of the murder, Showery admitted to being in the apartment that night, but he said he had fixed the TV and left. So apparently none of this information came out until after the reported ghost encounter. Police asked Showery's girlfriend if he had given her any jewelry recently, which she admitted that he had. Police then asked Teresita's family to look over the jewelry to see if they recognized anything, which they did. There were several distinct pieces they identified as having belonged to Teresita, and they were the ones that her ghost had described. When confronted with the jewelry evidence, Showery gave a full confession. He explained that he had fixed the TV and left, but decided to return to the apartment to rob and kill her. Even though he had confessed, he decided to plead not guilty at trial. The trial initially resulted in a mistrial because of a hung jury, but the prosecutor persisted and Showery eventually pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to 14 years in prison in 1977, almost 2 years to the day after Teresita was murdered. He was paroled after serving 4 years of that sentence.
Fuck.
Yes, I said 4. God. 4 versus 14. You know, I like that math.
Yeah, he was a nice guy.
Yeah.
He was fine. He didn't do anything. He was an accident.
Right.
Wow.
Yep. So that is my ghost story.
That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, could you imagine being faced with having communication from somebody that was dead, asking you to help solve your own murder?
Yeah. It'd be pretty wild. I don't think I would like it, but that's just me. I don't want to step out of my comfort zone that far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you, as far as, I mean, you guys are aware of, the topics that I cover on this show. And, where do you guys fall in that? Have either of you had any experiences that were what you would consider a little left to center, something that you didn't really want to...
So
when I was a kid,
admit,
I had a couple of experiences. There was one time when I was home and I slept on one end of the house and had to walk through the middle of the house to go to the bathroom. My parents were on the complete opposite end of the house. And I got up in the middle of the night one time and was walking through the middle of the house, walking through the kitchen. And off the kitchen, there's a laundry room, and that exited out of the house. I heard footsteps coming from that laundry room, and there was no one there. It was the middle of the night, so it was dark, but there was enough ambient light that you could have seen into, not clearly, but you could have seen it if someone was in there. I heard footsteps and something dragging. Scared the crap out of me. I didn't have to go to the bathroom after that. I just went back in bed and hid. And then there was one time that I was in high school and I had a boyfriend who, he and a roommate lived in an apartment, and my boyfriend collected dragon sculptures and little figurines and things, and he had a display case for them. And there was one dragon that no matter where it was in the case, it moved. Everything else stayed in place, but this one would rotate around and be in different positions. And he put it in different, he thought, oh, maybe this shelf there's a weird vibration from the street or whatever. No, it was just that one dragon that moved around in the case.
That's weird.
Yeah.
That is strange.
That's all that I've I'm sure I probably have had weird other things, but always just was like, no, I didn't really see that. That was just in my imagination.
And that's funny because that you say that, because that's a topic of discussion that comes up quite often in the show is, if you remain open to the idea of these things, I think you're more likely to recognize when they happen and not dismiss them. But some people, for whatever reason, throughout the course of their growing up and maturing, some people tend to close off from those type of topics, and they become further and further from being anything that they would recognize as reality. So it's easy to have a situation, happen and then just automatically associate it with, oh, it couldn't have been that, it was this. Or, the fact that it could have been supernatural doesn't even jump into your mind. Now it is replaced by, well, it's creaking doors, or the house is creaking because of the weather change or something like that. And it's interesting because nobody really knows, and it'd be really interesting to know if I've said time and time again, my parents didn't necessarily encourage me to delve into this type of stuff, but I was interested in UFOs at a very early age and Bigfoot at an early age. And then ghosts, kind of a natural progression. I got into ghosts and stuff like that. My parents never were like, hey, all right, kid, time to hang that stupid shit up. That doesn't exist. It's not real. You're just wasting your time. They never did that. They never said, oh, you ought to be a ghost investigator either, but, and I think I've always kept a very open mind to the exceptions of these things being possible and having interactions. And then throughout my life, I had interactions with my dad, who had died almost a year prior. And I mean, to me, it's, you can't, there's nothing that you could tell me. There's nothing that any expert could stand in front of me and say, what you experienced was not your dad. Mm-hmm. It was this. It was a natural occurrence. It was weird, but
yeah.
There's nothing. I have completely and utterly 100% buy into that it was my dad.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in those kind of situations, you just can feel it in your gut, Mm-hmm. I often wonder,
and those kind of experiences,
I was going to say, I've had quite a few family members pass away in the last few years. And I always wonder, am I going to get a visit from them and we can have a little chat or something? And I never have, not I think I would be totally open to it, but there's never been anything where I was like, could it have been? And then I explained it away. I just haven't. There hasn't been anything that's happened where I was like, oh yeah, okay. This was different. I just haven't had anything.
Have you had any of them show up in a dream?
Yeah. I've had a lot of people that have passed away that I've known that have shown up in a dream. And the dreams are always like complete nonsense. Like, oh, they were sitting on a park bench and I walked by and I was like, hey, how's it going? And just kept walking, And then when I woke up, I was like, oh, they were gone.
Yeah, I there's something about that experience of dreaming of somebody who's passed on that I wonder if that's an active route that they can take to show themselves to you.
Yeah.
And it may not make sense to you, like you said. It may not make sense to you, but it might give you some comfort in having seen them again.
Right.
Or at least let you know that, hey, you haven't thought about me in a while, and I'm here. And they pop in your dream, and you spend a little bit of time thinking about it, and
Yep.
I don't know.
The dog does that.
It's strange.
The dog has done.
What?
My dog has done that several times, and I wake up crying. Damn dog. Declan knows.
They get
yes.
to you, don't they?
He knows my love for that dog.
Yeah, they weasel their way into your heart.
Ugh. Yeah,
That's
they do.
crazy. What about you, Declan? You have any kind of experiences?
I wouldn't say it was an encounter, but there was this old burnt down house in Klamath Falls. And it was the myth that it had burnt down due to satanic rituals. Someone left a candle lit and it burnt the house down. And so my friend lived nearby this house, and we walked over there and tried to check it out. And first thing you notice when getting there is obviously the house is like burnt down in parts, and there's posters plastered all over one side of the house, and it's a picture of a rebel pilot from Star Wars, and it says, "Have you seen him?" And it just plastered all over the house. And so my friend's taking a video. We're just walking around the front of the house. We didn't go inside, but he kind of scans this way with his camera, scans back, and then scans this way again before ending the video. And there's this big window in the front of the house, and on the first scan it's just completely black inside. On the second scan, there's a giant red orb about the size of a basketball just in the center of the window, and then he scanned back and it was gone. And we didn't see anything when we were there. We watched the video when we got back to my friend's house, and we were all like, oh, what the hell was that? Yeah, that's my only experience that I can remember right now. Yeah.
That's
a little strange.
Yeah. I think we experience things. I think everybody experiences things.
Yeah.
And I think, like what we were saying earlier, I think depending on how you grew up, how you decided to mature, and the things that you left behind, and things are childish, or you're the type of person who always tries to find some logical reason for something happening. I think everybody experiences something, and I think it gets lost with a lot of people who just write it off as being, now I guess you could flip the switch and flip the script and say, well, I'm just completely the opposite, and every fart in the wind is a ghost. Yeah. Well, that's not true. I mean, that's not how I go through life. I have a skeptical mind, but I also, when people use Occam's razor as a defense for the weird, as far as, well, Occam's razor says if it was something that moved, then obviously the wind moved it. And I say, if Occam's razor is real, if it moved by itself, it's because it moved by itself.
Yeah.
Not trying to find some other attribute to having made it. But I guess it could be say I'm twisting it around to make it fit my paradigm. But I think, obviously, I believe in what I talk about here. You know, it's the weird is weird, and it's out there, and there's too many people that experience it to deny it.
Definitely.
So we get to the end part of your episodes, and you have another segment that is called
The
what?
Chaser.
The Chaser. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm still trying to get the taste of the. I'm still trying to get the taste of Alice out of my mouth because she. I think she made some hair grow on my tongue.
Well, Declan, did you bring a chaser? What chaser did you bring for us today?
So I have a movie recommendation for everybody.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So my movie recommendation, it's not a new movie, but I just recently watched it for the first time. And it's Law Abiding Citizen with Jamie Foxx and Gerard Butler, I believe. Yeah, that's a great action movie with a big twist. It's a great watch. What about you? You got a chaser for us?
Nice.
Yes, my chaser is based on an article that I saw the other day about the Heinz Company, the company that makes ketchup. They are
H.J. Heinz.
Yeah, they're looking for a man who he's a Dominican sailor. His name is Elvis Francois. They're looking for him because he survived at sea for 24 days on all that he had with him, which was spices and a bottle of ketchup. Yeah.
No kidding.
Yep. He was rescued, and after he was rescued, he basically disappeared from the limelight. They got his story. Well, now Heinz, the company, is looking for him because they want to buy him a boat, and they want to fill it with navigational equipment so that he will never get lost again and have to eat ketchup.
Wow.
They should put some ketchup on there for sure. But yeah, I guess they can't find him. And so they turned to social media and put his story and his face out there and said, help us find him because we want to give him a boat.
It'd be really funny if they gave him a lifetime supply of ketchup.
They should, for sure.
Well, absolutely.
I don't know if I would eat ketchup again.
You know, I mean, H.J. Heinz, they have relish. They've got mustard, ketchup. They got all kinds of stuff, man. This guy could be like the condiment king.
Exactly. Well, Eric, did you bring a chaser to tell us?
I did. And you're going to have to forgive me because I'm not usually in this position where I read an account on the show. It's usually free-form conversation, but I'm going to give it a go. And so for the chaser, I've picked the Hammersmith Ghost. Okay. And this goes all the way back to 1803 in the United Kingdom. Near the end of that year, an extraordinary number of people had claimed in the area of London to have seen or been attacked by a ghost in the Hammersmith area. The common belief by locals was that ghost was that of a man who had committed suicide the previous year. The lore goes to say that he had been buried within a churchyard in Hammersmith, and at the time, the belief was that suicide victims should not be buried on consecrated ground, as it would provide no rest for the soul. Accounts of the apparition described it as being very tall, dressed all in white, and at times with horns or very large eyes, which that's kind of creepy.
For sure.
Stories of the ghost quickly circulated the area. One night, 2 women, one elderly and the other one with child, were reportedly seized by the ghost on separate occasions while walking near the churchyard. The legend goes on to say that both women had perished from the shock of their experience days later. Thomas was a groom brewer servant. He later testified that while walking through the churchyard with a companion one night around 9 p.m., something rose from behind the tombstone and seized him by the throat. Once hearing the scuffle, his companion turned around, at which point the ghost grabbed him and twisted him around. And as he pushed out with his fist, he said he felt something soft against his hand, but there was nothing there that he could see. Then on December 29th, William Girdler saw a ghost near Beaver Lane and gave chase. Girdler was a night watchman for a group of armed citizens that would patrol the streets. He witnessed the apparition dressed in white, shed its shroud, and then disappear into the night. At the time, the London area had no organized police force, and with many people who were frightened by the stories of this apparition, several armed patrols were formed by concerned citizens. Their intent was the apprehension of the apparition. The sightings continued till around 10:30 p.m. January 3rd. Girdler, who was 29, met an excise officer named Francis Smith. Smith told Girdler he was going to look for the supposed ghost. Girdler agreed that he would join Smith at about 11 o'clock. They had a very rousing conversation, seemed to kind of work themselves into a frenzy, and convinced themselves that they would take the ghost by any means possible. Then they went their separate ways. Just after 11 p.m., Smith rounded the corner and was faced with a tall white figure dressed head to toe in white. It was the apparition. Smith challenged the apparition by saying, "Damn you! Who are you? What are you? Damn you, I will shoot you." After which, Smith immediately discharged his firearm into the apparition. The ghost fell, slumped into a heap on the street in front of Smith. In his exuberance, Smith had just placed a bullet through the jawbone and out the back of the neck of Thomas Millwood. Millwood was a bricklayer who was wearing the normal clothing of his trade, which was white linen trousers, a white flannel shirt, and a brand new white canvas apron, which he wore around him. According to Millwood's sister, he had been heading back home to visit with his parents and his sister, who lived a laneway away. Millwood's sister, Anne, said immediately after seeing her brother off that she heard Smith's voice from around the corner challenging him, and then the shot rang out. Smith was eventually tried for willful murder. He was found guilty with a sentence of death and dismemberment. That later was commuted by the king to 1 year of hard labor. So the interesting thing about this is, obviously, everybody was in a frenzied, worked up state of mind because everybody thought this was a ghost. Smith comes around the corner, sees somebody that is basically from hat to shoes dressed in white, assumes it's an apparition, thinks it's the ghost, and without thinking fires a shot that goes through the guy's jaw and out through his spine and the back of his neck, killing him instantly.
Bad day.
The really interesting thing, bad day. And to have happened so close to the sister's house where she heard the whole thing, it was just out of eyesight. But the interesting thing is that this case from 1803 came up again in the UK Court of Appeals in 1983 because there was a case that had a very similar circumstance as this, and they were using that case to to show that it was cited whether or not acting on a mistaken belief was sufficient evidence for defense in a criminal charge. And it effectively changed the UK's laws from that point on. So
pretty wild.
You know, it's a terrible, tragic story. It kind of sounds in the beginning like just some folklore or, you know, a good old story, but when you get down to the nitty gritty of it, it actually happened, and it actually changed UK law 20 some years ago.
Yeah.
30 some
Super
years
interesting.
ago. So
wild. Yeah. Really wild.
Yeah. Just goes to show, you know, when you get a group of people that are all scared about something and they're all talking amongst themselves and they get worked up into a frenzy, and you put weapons in the hands of people that maybe it shouldn't be in the hands of, and they start walking the streets.
Yeah.
Well, that's always a good thing. I'm a firm believer in owning weapons. I think everybody deserves the right to be able to protect themselves, carry a firearm if you have a license to do so. But
be safe.
I also think there ought to be some stringent rules and probably a lot more looking into people's mental health before you get the license to carry those weapons.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, guys, this has been a lot of fun. It really has been a neat little departure from what I'm used to doing, and it's not that far out of the realm of what we normally do. I think we all tied things in close enough to fall under the guise of being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So if you would, before we end this, do me a favor and just let everybody know again where they can find you and what you guys have coming up.
Yeah. Again, we're the Brutal Bizarre and Boozy podcast. You can find us on Instagram, brutal_bizarre_boozy. And if you find us we're on all the major podcasting platforms. If you find us there and want to reach out to us, all our contact information is in our show notes. So that's probably the easiest way to find us other than Instagram. We're on Facebook. We got our email out there. So feel free to reach out and say hi and give us a listen and a follow and a like and a share and all those good things. We appreciate it.
Show them love. Show them love. What do you guys got coming up in the future here? You guys doing any kind of appearances anywhere? Or are you planning on putting out a book with a collaborative of all these different stories that you guys have collected?
No book, no face-to-faces anywhere. I've been looking around, and Oregon doesn't have a lot of anything exciting coming up, so we don't have anything scheduled for that. So you can find us on podcast platforms and listen to us. And then, we don't have anything. Our only upcoming plans are to just keep putting out a podcast every week. So, and hopefully making some new friends like you and your listeners. Absolutely. And, get some new listens out there. And
well, I'm sure my listeners are going to love this. I would expect that a number of them will come over and give you guys some love and start listening to what you guys have put out. It's such I love doing this. It's such a neat way to meet like-minded people. Mm-hmm. You get the, I don't know how you guys are with your fans, but you know, I have a lot of interaction with the people that listen to my show and the conversations that we have, whether it be via messages or through our Discord. Man, it makes it all worth all the effort to put these things out. It's terrific. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And then getting to meet new people like yourselves and, you know, just kind of building this community and keeping good people around you and trying to help people where you can.
Yeah.
And it's just neat stuff.
Yeah.
I love it.
We're enjoying it. We're having a lot of fun.
How long have you been doing it now?
Since August of last year. So August 22. So not quite a year.
How many episodes you guys have
What's
out?
that?
How many episodes do you have
up? 29
we just did
coming out.
episode 20. Yeah, 29 is coming up in a couple of days for us. So
awesome!
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Do you get fans sending you in recommendations or maybe sending you stories that you use on the
Yes,
show?
a few times we have. Yeah, we've had some great fan interactions with people telling us about their hometowns and things that we should go see if we go on a road trip, because we've talked about doing road trips to see cool stuff, and we've had those kind of fun little chats. So yeah, some good.
Well, maybe I've got one
Okay.
for you. When I was in high school, actually when I was in grade school, we had this kid that his name was Ronald Whitehead, and never really paid much attention to him like in grade school, but once we got into 6th, 7th, 8th grade, middle school, he started kind of being separated from everybody else because he was that kid that never washed his hair, and he really nervously was always picking at his fingers, or he was picking at his face. He was always that kid that had a note from home that he didn't have to participate in gym class. He was just that. He was just that weird kid. And in 6th grade, I had to sit next to him the entire year. And honestly, I can't remember ever having an interaction with him. That's how much he did not talk. He was just a weird kid. And so going into my freshman year of high school, we came back from summer break. He had gotten a job working for our local newspaper as a janitor in the evenings. So he had worked there up until Christmas break. We all went on Christmas break, came back however many days later to find out that down in the basement where he worked at the South Bend Tribune, he had gone up to a reporter who worked there and professed his love to her. Now, he was 16 years old. She was 20-something, married, pregnant.
Not good.
And he told her he loved her. And she said whatever she said to him. And he walked away from her. He walked into another room. He removed a roller out of a old-fashioned typewriter. He walked back, and he bludgeoned her to death. Oh.
Wow.
Killing her and her baby. And I'm like, I sat next to that kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was weird. Yeah, he wasn't somebody I hung out with. But you never, and the other thing is, people will say, well, people probably picked on him and all that stuff. And that may very well have been the case. I didn't ever see that. I never saw anybody really being mean to him. I just didn't see anybody ever paying any attention to him because he kind of put himself in that spot, But my God, to go remove the roller out of an old-fashioned typewriter,
yeah,
and then come back and just beat her to death, and then he called the police and said that he tried to stop the guy that killed her.
Oh, what an ass!
Yeah.
The name sounds really familiar.
He went to jail. Ronald Whitehead, South Bend, Indiana.
Okay.
I believe it was 1980.
I'm gonna have to look that up.
And then he subsequently killed himself while in prison. I think maybe around 1995,
Wow.
something like that. Yeah.
Wow.
So
I'm going to look into that. Thank you.
Obsessive young love.
Yeah, no kidding.
Crazy.
Well,
Deklan, Jane, thank you so much for being with me tonight. I appreciate it. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your efforts. The content you guys are putting out is great, and I earnestly encourage everybody to go over, check out Brutal Bizarre and Boozy, the podcast. That's good stuff.
Thank you for having us.
Well, thank you for having us. We appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Good. I'm glad.
Right.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Good night. All right, my friends, that's it for tonight's show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Jane and Deklan, the hosts of Brutal Bizarre and Boozy podcast. That was a great conversation. And don't forget to like us on Facebook and Instagram, both at uNcomfortable Podcast 65. If you've had an experience and you'd like to have it featured on the show, please contact me at contact.uncomfortable@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in this week, and as always, stay uncomfortable, my friends.
So, how does it feel when you play Roll Up to Win with Tim Hortons? Buy a hot or cold beverage using the Tim's app and find out. Roll in the app for a chance to win prizes ranging from free coffee and donuts to a Universal Orlando resort vacation or a sweet car. Oh, don't forget the TV. And this year, every roll is a shot at a $1,000 daily giveaway drawing for two $500 prizes. Roll up to win and get treated by Tim's. No purchase necessary. Account registration required. 50 U.S. and D.C. 18 plus entered by 4/2/23. See rules at rolluptowin.com for free entry or full details. Void in Florida and where prohibited.
Welcome to BreezeLine, where the sky's the limit thanks to better internet. With lightning-fast speeds up to 1 gig, you can game like a boss, stream like a pro, and watch like there's no tomorrow. Stream, watch, post, send, and trend. Do it all with our fiber-powered network, bringing you reliable, fast internet. Welcome to BreezeLine. Visit breezeline.com for latest offers. Service subject to availability. New customers in select areas only. Visit breezeline.com for details.